Today is Thursday, July 23rd. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we're on Bill's story. We will read page 13. Out of the 12 and 12, we are pressing on with step 3. We'll read page 35. And of course, we'll read the NA Just for Today and Al-Anon's Courage to Change. So with that, I hope y'all are doing well this beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning, my friends. And, it's Friday Eve, right? Life is good over here. Man, I went to a powerful meeting last night. Just so powerful. And they were talking about patience and perseverance, right? And a dear friend of mine, he was sharing, that he still hasn't been able to rebuild a relationship with his oldest daughter after all these years. Although her daughter had a child recently and she hugged him and told him that she loved him. It's a moment that he treasures, but the relationship's still strained. He also underwent open heart surgery, and although his daughter never reached out or was even maybe aware that he had the surgery, he was sharing in the meeting that he's learned to be grateful for every small sign of grace. And he even said, and I wrote this one down, patience is the fruit of humility. And for him, humility began with step 1. And he was kind of talking about how during his last relapse, and this is dark, but he had a gun on the table and he was planning to use it. And yet here he is on the other side of it, sober, after working the steps, being humble enough to admit that he was powerless over alcohol, and practicing these principles in all of his affairs, right? And the key takeaway that he kept really hammering home, and I wrote this down too, God's way is better than my way. And before his open heart surgery, he knew there was a chance that he wouldn't survive. Yet he said, and he looked me in the eyes when he shared it, it was crazy. He said, I would have been at peace with whatever happened because he'd surrendered his life to God's care. Whether he lived or died, he knew he was in God's hands. And once again, God's way was always better than his own. Man, what a beautiful share. Just beautiful. So with that, let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. All right, my friends. So if you recall from yesterday's reading out of the Big Book, this interaction with Ebby, as we've been talking about for the last few days, has been monumental in Bill's recovery. When Ebby suggests the idea, and this is in the squigglies, right? So it's important. Why don't you choose your own conception of God? Well, Bill never thought of it that way, right? And then once again in squigglies, it was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. And I saw the growth could start from that point. So there's step 2 for Bill right there. And we're going to build on this on page 13, and we're going to see bits and pieces of a big chunk of the steps. I see step 3 and 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 11, 10. Oh yeah, there's 10 and 12. I've taken notes all over the place here. I'm pretty scattered and unorganized. But let's go ahead and read it. Page 13 of Bill's story. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. There, I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself, I was nothing. That without him, I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. I have not had a drink since. My schoolmate visited me, and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. We made a list of people that I had hurt and toward whom I'd felt resentment. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals admitting my wrong. Never was I to be critical of them, I was to right all such matters to the utmost of my ability. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as He would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my requests bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Out of the 12 and 12, we're on step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Page 35. To every worldly and practical-minded beginner, this step looks hard, even impossible. No matter how much one wishes to try, exactly how can he turn his will and his life over to the care of whatever God he thinks there is? Fortunately, we who have tried it, and with equal misgivings, can testify that anyone at all, can begin to do it. We can further add that a beginning, even the smallest, is all that is needed. Once we have placed the key of willingness in the lock and have the door ever so slightly open, we can find that we can always open it some more. Though self-will may slam it shut again, as it frequently does, it will always respond the moment we again pick up the key of willingness. Maybe this all sounds mysterious and remote, something like Einstein's theory of relativity or a proposition in nuclear physics. It isn't at all. Let's look at how practical it actually is. Every man and woman who has joined AA and intends to stick has, without realizing it, made a beginning on step 3. Isn't it true that in all matters touching upon alcohol, each of them has decided to turn his or her life over to the care, protection, and guidance of Alcoholics Anonymous? Already a willingness has been achieved to cast out one's own will and one's own ideas about the alcohol problem in favor of those suggested by AA. Any willing newcomer feels sure that AA is the only safe harbor for the foundering vessel that he's become. Now, if this is not turning one's will and life over to a newfound providence, then what is it? NA Gist for today, July 23rd. Surrendering self-will. We want and demand that things always go our way. We should know from our past experience that our way of doing things did not work. Basic text. Page 93. All of us have ideas, plans, and goals for our lives. There's nothing in the NA program that says we shouldn't think for ourselves, take initiative, and put responsible plans into action. It's when our lives are driven by self-will that we run into problems. When we are living willfully, we go beyond thinking for ourselves. We think only of ourselves. We forget that we are but a part of the world, and that whatever personal strength that we have is drawn from a higher power. We might even go so far as to imagine that other people exist solely to do our bidding. Quickly, we find ourselves at odds with everybody and everything around us. At this point, we have two choices. We can continue in our slavery to self-will, making unreasonable demands and becoming frustrated because the planet doesn't spin our way. Or we can surrender, relax, seek knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out, and find our way back to a condition of peace with the world. Thinking, taking initiative, making responsible plans, there's nothing wrong with these things, so long as they serve God's will not merely our own. Just for today, I will plan to do God's will, not mine. If I find myself at odds with everything around me, I will surrender self-will. Al-Anon's Courage to Change, July 23rd. A miraculous change has come about because of my commitment to the Al-Anon program. I have discovered that I have a sense of humor. When I came to these rooms, I never cracked a smile and resented anyone who did. I couldn't understand all the laughter during the meetings. I didn't hear anything funny. Life was tragic and serious. Recently, I was sharing about a series of events that I had found extremely difficult. It had been one of those weeks in which everything seemed to go wrong. The odd part was that now that it was over, I found my traumatic tale incredibly funny, and so did most of the others at the meeting. More than any other change that I have observed in myself, I find this the most glorious. It tells me that I see myself and my life in a more realistic way. I am no longer a victim, full of self-pity and bent on control of every aspect of my life. Today, I can take myself and my circumstances more lightly. I can even allow joy and laughter to be a part of a difficult experience. Today's reminder: if I take a step back and look at this day as if I were watching a movie, I'm sure to find at least one moment where I can enjoy some comic relief. You grow up the day that you have the first real laugh at yourself. Quote from Ethel Barrymore. All right, my friends, that concludes today's reading and some beautiful stuff. I love Rule 62, and we're going to get to that when we get a little further in the 12 and 12, in the traditions. But Rule 62, do not take yourself too damn seriously. I have. Oh my goodness, my ego. There's been many times where I'm like, I'm the man. And then I'll be like, oh, don't say that, Rob. You're not the man. Stop that. I've done that. And I have to be careful. Sometimes I can still get prideful. When I do take a step back, it does crack me up. Like, oh, here you go again, Rob. Here's what you're doing. You know how this is going to end up, right? How many more times you got to do it? But, what a blessing it is to look at ourselves in that way and be able to laugh at ourselves and go, yep, yeah, that was me. I did that. And sometimes I'm like, oh boy, I can't believe I did that too. But I love the line that we're not victims. We're not. Because if I'm a victim, I'm using that as an excuse to be idle, to deflect the blame, and not do anything productive for my fellow man. And I love the 12 and 12 reading as well. Let me see. The key of willingness. I love that. It says right here, fortunately, we who have tried it and with equal misgivings can testify that anyone at all can begin to do step 3. We can further add that a beginning, even the smallest, is all that is needed. Once we have placed the key of willingness into the lock, so once we're willing to do the work and we start to do it, even though we don't quite understand it all, right? And have the door ever so slightly open, we find that it can always be opened some more. Practical example, I've heard many people say that for a long time their higher power was the AA group itself. And then they would keep coming back and they would do the work. And then eventually their conception of a higher power would evolve, would change into something bigger than that. And they would express that. But the bottom line is, if I'm willing to do the work and I start to take those baby steps of the 12 steps, then progress can be made. That's 90% of the battle, is willingness to do the work. And I love what I've always been told, that we learn as we go. Eventually that tunnel vision will expand, right? Where we start to practice these principles in all of our affairs and take more inventory and stuff. It's a constant growing process. And speaking of which, with Bill's situation, you see all those steps there, all the work that he put in. Real quick, I ruthlessly faced my sins. There's step 4. Became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. So that's 6 and 7 right there. My schoolmate visited me. I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. There's step 5. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals and admit my wrong. Never was I to be critical of them. There's 8 and 9 right there. I was testing my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. So I see step 10 and 11 there. My friend promised when all these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my creator. There's the first part of step 12, having had that spiritual awakening, right? So right here on page 13, we see the fruit of all that work beginning to happen in Bill's life. In just a few pages before, he was contemplating suicide. He felt absolutely hopeless. And now he's having a spiritual awakening just a few pages later. How beautiful is that? Miracles still do happen. And if you are listening to this, my friend, and you are sober, or if you're not, I hope you know that you're a miracle. The fact that we are alive today, that our heart is beating, we're miracles. And we have the opportunity to change and grow today. Whatever that might look like in our lives. And please know, as always, my friends, I don't speak on behalf of AA, NA, Al-Anon, any other sect or denomination. I'm just a joyful drunk in this lifeboat of recovery, honored to be here another day. And for giving another set of 24 hours, I sincerely look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.